So in this webinar, I am going to be covering the kind of the topic here of what has changed between a model or within a model or a model that you have received from someone else. In this webinar, I'm going to be covering the tool of the model compare in the CTC BIM project suite. This tool was designed that you can actually take snapshots of a project and at a given time, and then you can also take snapshots at another time. So this is one thing that has been needing for quite a while, is just to confirm what has changed. If you need to know, how many elements were put into a model and how many elements were removed, what was changed. One of the other big things is that if you get a file from someone else, if you're working with them and they send you a file and you're like, hey, what has changed? And they're not giving you that information, or you have to spend time doing screen shares or documents to, they go over what has changed. Well, with this particular tool, it can help with that process, because the tool will actually tell you what has changed and what is left the same and what has been modified. So we're going to cover all of that. And throughout the webinar, there is the question and answer panel that you can propose a question at the time. If I'm covering the topic and I see it and I have the going over the question, I will answer it then. Otherwise, I will save time toward the end to answer those questions also. So again, with this particular tool, this model compare, there is the ability to take snapshots of a model. And when you take a snapshot of the model, the tool is going to go through and it's going to gather all of this information that is in the model, and it's going to save it to a file. You get to choose where to save that file, and you get to choose what information you are going after. There is the ability to select what categories you want, what parameter data you want, and also what information is going to be exported with this snapshot. It does save it as its own file format, only for model compare that it can be used. But let's actually show this here in Revit itself, so a little bit bigger of a screen capture of what it is. So on the software, CTC software tab, there is model compare. And in here, this is when you open the file and you want to take a snapshot at a time of this file. You open it up and you come on here and you say take snapshot. And you may get a message about this, that the current file is unsaved. You can hit yes or no if you want to sync. I just opened this file, so typical Revit that it says, hey, you made changes, even though I haven't done anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes to continue. And then in here, I get to choose what categories I want to include. So if I'm going after everything in this model, I can simply check here to say include everything. Otherwise, I can come over here and uncheck this and then come over here and remove which ones I don't want to include. So I'm going to edit that list, and I can come in here and say, well, I'm in an architecture model and I don't care about air terminals or the terminal tags or any of these analyticals. Go ahead and remove all those. So I can pick and choose the categories that I'm most interested in. So if I am on the MEP side and I am capturing an architecture model that made changes, or on the structure side and the architecture model made changes, I can then come in here and choose which categories to go after in that architectural model. Now, again, in order for this tool to work, you do have to open the tool or open the file that you're wanting to take the snapshot of. It doesn't go after link changes. It only goes after changes within the model you're in. I don't know, I'm not quite sure why this is freezing up on me, so I apologize on that. All right, so once I try to get that, let the process in the background there, so again, apologize, but again, you get to choose the categories, and then under the data types for these, you get to choose what other information you're going after, such as the work set data, the import links data, the project information, the project parameters, the family groups, and the definitions of those. So it's going after any information that you really want in there. And then there is an area here of include all fast parameters found in the project and include the slow parameters found in the project. And slow parameters actually are some of the parameters that are just a little harder to go after. There's like some other parameters that make it a little harder to get, like the warnings, things like that. They're a little slower to get after because Revit itself, for some reason, it's not as fast to get that information from it. Especially with warnings, if you have a high number of warnings in a project, getting that information can take a little bit longer to process. So I don't know if I'm having, if there's an error in the background here, but I'm gonna go ahead and close it and we'll reopen and I'll go through some other things too, but okay. So once you have the elements and the parameters that you choose, the data, up at the top, you get to pick where you want to save that snapshot so that you can understand the difference of the file. So you save it to a server location or on your hard drive. It just depends on where you want to set. And once you have these set here, down here, there is the ability to save the settings so that you can then load those settings for another project. So you can do it again at another time or another project. You get to pick that. And then once you again set your settings, you simply hit take snapshot. And when you take a snapshot, it's gonna process all that information and take all that data and put it in that file. Then you take another snapshot of the file at another time, and we'll get into that portion as well afterward. Now, one other feature with the model compare is the ability to schedule a export of the data. So within the tool, there is the schedule. You come into the edit schedule configurations. You tell it where to save the file. You tell it what filters to use. You tell it what snapshot naming convention you want to use. And then you come, then the task scheduler pops up, and then you get to pick how often you want it to take a snapshot of this. And when you are doing a snapshot, you do have to be logged in to the computer and running. You can lock the computer, but you cannot log out. So you do have to have the computer logged in under a user profile, because that is what fires off the task schedule to do the process. And so this process is going to then open the file, or it's going to open Revit, open the file, take a snapshot, save it, or save the snapshot, and then close Revit and the file out. So you don't have to do this manually when you want. If you want to do the difference of, hey, I got a file really quickly and I just want to get the difference, then you open it up, export it, take the snapshot, and then you get your comparison there. But the schedule feature is if you wanted to see, weekly, I wanted to know how much changes were done in there, or how many elements were added between this time, and you can do those comparisons and get that snapshots how you want them. Now, once you have your snapshots taken, you need at least to get a minimum of 2 snapshots, and then you can compare the differences between them. So when you get into the tool, you do have the ability to select one of your compare files, and then you take the other one of the newest one and you put them in here, and then you get to pick and choose what categories and what parameters you want to go after as well. Because even if you had in the settings or the filters, you had more information in that, but then you wanted to compare it actually slightly different, like okay, yeah, I took snapshots of all these categories, but I don't want to do it at this particular moment. So during the comparison procedure, you can come in here and uncheck categories that you don't want to compare at that time. And then afterward, you hit compare, and then the tool is going to process all that information, and then it's going to come into these tabs here, where you can actually go between general information, elements, parameters, and then a report. And with that report, you can then export that to Excel, and then you can show that data in Excel. This is going to be helpful for conducting meeting and not have to be within the tool. You can conduct a meeting within the Excel itself, and then they color code it accordingly so that, like for example, green is it's exactly the same. Yellow means that it's different, and then there are two other colors of red and another color of if it was added or removed. So if you deleted something from a project, it would come up in one color that it was removed from the newest version. And then another one, I think it's like blue, is added to a project. So it's brand new. So let me get Revit started fire back up here so I can get into a model and kind of show the tool better. But under the general information, again, this is just giving you basic information about the tool or about the project. So, when's the file size? What is the amount of annotation families in there? How many families? How many views? How many sheets? How many rooms, phases? How many levels? It just gives you a brief overview of the project. And so like here, last saved, it actually will call out the last save date. The model objects, it calls out that you have this many objects in the model at that point and this many objects in the model at this point. Same thing with the families. So all this information is very handy to then know what is different between those. So I'm going to open up a model and then show you what it looks like live in the tool. Now, as this is opening here, I do see a question that came through and says about model compare was designed to review projects. What about Revit families? I will say that yes, this tool is currently only designed for projects, and having a tool that does the families, I agree. That would be an awesome tool as well. However, that needs to be submitted to CTC software for that. All right, so let's get into the tool here. So again, once I had the file here, I did a take snapshot. I can again pick what categories and what elements I want to go after, and then I simply say take snapshot. And again, at that particular moment, it's going to grab all the data in that file that you choose and export it to the snapshot file. And then you can come up here and you say new comparison, and then you pick your file here, you pick your other file, and then again, you get to choose what categories to go after. Again, if you didn't include them in the snapshot file, I would recommend to not check them in here as well, but it won't even go after it because the data is not there. And then you click OK, and then the tool is going to run the comparison. And I already have one done here just to show a sample, because this does take some time to do. And it depends on the size of your project and how much data has changed. So I'm going to open up an existing one. So here it tells you your file path, your last saved, the project version. So if it was upgraded from one snapshot to another, and then the project name, number, status, model object. So here you can see it went from 5866 to 6408. And then the annotations went up, the families went up, and the views went up. Sheets, materials, phases. If here, if I expand it, you see all the different phases. If those changed, levels, you get to see all the information of the dimensions, like the height of it, all of that. So if a level was moved, you can see how far it was moved. You know, if it went from 0 to 5 feet, you know, you would know that. And then under the elements data, you get to see all the things that have changed. So here, families. If I expand it, I see a specialty equipment, and then I see all these are specialty equipment. Those are blue. So down here in the right corner, there is the non-existing added. So this did not exist in the previous snapshot, but now it exists in the second snapshot. So I can see what particular families were added to a project. And this can be beneficial if you're trying to figure out why one of your file sizes all of a sudden went really high. You can now see that, like, why did that file size go up? When I look at it, I can then see that, hey, I see all these families were removed, and all of a sudden my file size jumped up. You know, then I can actually come through and kind of break down that information here. So, and then under the model categories, I get to see what has changed here. So under the model category, I have cameras, and this shows me the camera here of these 3D views was modified as well. So it tells me, like right here, here's the eye elevation. It went from this to this for that view. And then under the reception desk, there's a camera for that. But then under the families, like here I have a casework. It didn't exist, and now it does. So I can see all the modifications there. I see some doors changed here. And if I continue breaking down, I can actually see what they changed. So for example, this door was in the model, but it didn't have a room at the time. Now it has a room because this must have been that the room was added afterward. And I can also confirm that because right here under rooms, I can see that these rooms were added. So under this door, oh, that's casework. Doors, if I expand it, the room is the 358. So if I come down here to to views or rooms, 358 down here, that didn't exist before, but now it does. I can see some schedules were added, and I see revision schedule didn't exist, but now it does. And under sheets, I see that some sheets were added or updated. So here I see graphics, like the scale went from nothing to this. This elevation was brand new. It didn't exist, or the sheet, yeah, didn't exist, but now it's brand new. And then I see all of these that had previously had information on there, like this one went from A23 to A24 for the thing, and then the title changed as well. And then I see some viewport changes, some title blocks, views. I see a bunch of views were changed. And on the views here, the reason they changed is because now they're been put on a sheet. So now it tells me what sheet those views were put on. And the same thing with annotation categories. I get to see what has changed with those. So under the elevations here, I'm pretty sure that these are, they went from a sheet. Yeah, they got put on a sheet. So now they have sheet information for that elevation. Same thing with room tags. These didn't exist. These rooms didn't. So now they do. In this particular sample data set, I didn't have anything removed from the project, but down here in the lower right corner, you will see that those will highlight red for that. Now, currently, looking at this again, currently I have everything that is set to be different, but there is the ability right here, if you wanted to look at the equal, I could do that, and I see a bunch of greens showed up because they're equal. So this is the exact same as it was before. No changes have been done to it. And under the parameter data, same thing, that when I can do parameters, I can see what parameter values have changed directly as well. So if I went in there and added a value to an element, this parameter would capture that. So for example, let's see, get some of the other stuff here, base height change for this range here. And then the constraints, the cameras, the structural phases changed here, just because it added more stuff. Materials, identity data. So all this parameters, type name, sheet width, those all changed because they added a sheet. So now sheet width changed because it added another sheet that has a size to it. Sheet numbers, all these sheets were added. Oh, here we go. Here's one. So sheet number, this sheet was removed. And I might have missed that back on the elements here under the model categories sheets. Let's see. Yeah, that I might have not have done the snapshot at the time. This is actually an interesting one. So I'm gonna have to look at that because I don't see a let's see, let me do just non-existing. Let's see, non-existing sheets. Yeah, it's not giving me the that one sheet that was deleted. I'm gonna have to look at that because it's supposed to show me that, but under the parameters, I did see it. It showed me that a sheet was removed. So it went from this to none. Now, actually, a good question just popped up of how do you find these elements in the model to review the change? Good question. So when you're in the tool here, and I come in and I select these, and I want to determine what is modified and get more details about this, up at the top here, there is the two filters or two options of auto zoom and auto select. So if I check auto zoom, it's going to then go zoom into that particular element and find it for me. And it will then show it in the background. Now, if I say auto select and I click on it, you can see in the background, it is actually flickering. So if I move this off to the side, I can now see that room. Now this is a modeless window. So when I select it, I can actually click back in Revit and move around. So let me select that room. I'm gonna click back in Revit. Oop, it keeps deselecting because I keep clicking off in space, but then I can zoom in here and see the room. So let me do that to another element here. So let's go to views. And I click on that one and then open that one. And now it also selected, it keeps the room selected because I had that previously selected, but. Oh, there's the room or that view. It was the view here that was removed, not a sheet. So I thought it was a sheet, not a room. So again, that's an awesome feature here too. Again, is just to be able to go through and see what has changed. So now here I clicked on the entire category. I don't want to do that. I want to click on an individual element. So I clicked on that. Now if I come back into my view, I can zoom out and I can see where that element's placed. I can see what view it is in. And again, it even opened it for me. So if I close all these out and I click on this element, it's going to say, hey, no view, and I click open. Now that view is open and I can zoom out to get more information on that view. Now, again, with these two particular options, you can look at a snapshot or look at a comparison while you're not in that model. However, to use these features, you would want to be in that model. So thank you for that question. That was a good question. Now, once I have this here, I did forget about this one here, is that you have the schedule configs. I talked about that in just doing the PowerPoint, but here I can do schedule configs where I can come in here and choose where to save the snapshots, what settings to use, and how to name that snapshot file. And then once you can make the configuration for it, then you can use the scheduler And again, here it says you must not log off, but you can lock it, but you cannot log off. And then I create a new one, and then I get to pick the name of it and how often I want it to repeat. And then I got to add the config file that I had before, that I saved back in the config settings. And then I pick that, and then I add what Revit files I want it to do. And then I click OK, and it will save this schedule so that at that time that you selected it to run, it will then launch Revit and do it. Now, if you do this during a work hours, it will actually fire up a second session of Revit, open the file, and do the snapshot there. So you could technically be in the file or in another file in Revit, and it will actually still run. You'll be using up a little bit more resource because it's trying to do the task at the same time you're doing other procedures. Now, one question that always comes up with this particular tool is currently right now, if you're just wanting to do BIM 360 projects, the scheduler portion does not do BIM 360 projects at this time. Because of the ability of not being able to browse to a BIM 360 file. Even if trying to use the desktop connector location, I would not recommend it, that you would have issues having to opening that file. So I don't recommend doing that. But you can open the BIM 360 projects and say take snapshot, and you would get that there. However, BIM 360 also has its model compare features within BIM 360. This will just be if you're wanting to look at it in kind of more of a report format versus a visual format like in BIM 360 viewer there. Some like that feature in BIM 360, some would just prefer a quick report. This is here. Now, I'm not going to click the report tab because a couple of times I've done it, it does take a little bit of time to process. So instead, I am going to browse to a file, again, that I've already saved out. So that you can see the result of what it does. Excuse me. So any questions you're coming up with, again, feel free to ask them. And let me go ahead and get my file here. So again, I saved this file out to Excel just so that I can bring it in to show this here. Again, this was already a pre-made one. But you can get the idea of what it looks like. So when I save this out, I did choose it to let it export all the stuff here. So when it puts it in a format here of just giving you the broad overview at the top, and then the general information of like things like the model objects, and then I go down and I get the specialty category of what has changed, and it's giving me each individual instant of a family that was placed in the project, and then all the parameters about it. So it's kind of, the report is doing the elements and the parameter information all in one kind of tab here, or one area here, so that I can see, here's this element, here's all the details about that particular element or that instance there. So I can scroll through, and here's now the models, here's the sheets. You can see what sheet information has changed. This sheet didn't exist, and now it does. So I can kind of go through here and scan through all of this data. Now you can see it's quite long because I had quite a bit of information in there, but you do have, again, all of this data that you, if you wanted to go through and dig through. You can delete out elements that are rows that you don't want anymore. And again, use this Excel features there. All right, so this is the feature here to be able to quickly do a comparison between two files that you, or two snapshots of the file that you want. Again, this can be used within the file that you're wanting or you're working on. So if you wanted to know what was being done to your file and how many elements and views and things like that were done, you can just take a snapshot of your file and compare them at given times. Again, the other huge benefit is if you're getting a file from someone else, you can open it up, take a snapshot, you get another version from them a little bit later, next week or next month. You can take a snapshot and then you can do a comparison between them to see what did they change. On the depending on your discipline, it could be very handy to know exact what was changed in their model. If you're on the structure side, you want to know if an architect moved a structural wall. That impacts your beam sizes, your columns, and on the MEP side, if you want to know if a room got bigger, because that can affect your airflow that you need for it or the requirements, your heating and cooling loads. If a wall moved and you need to put in more outlets or less outlets or things like that, you can actually take that snapshot and do the comparison to know what is done that you then need to do. So thank you for your time here and watching this webinar. But again, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.